Thanks for listening to the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. You can contact the show at twitter.com/DW Groovecast and through Facebook at facebook.com/Drummers Weekly Groovecast.
Good evening.
I am warning you right now, if you touch my drums, I will stab you in the neck with a knife.
Ain't a bucket. Ain't a bucket.
Mom!
Take it easy. Lower it.
I'm not gonna lower it. I have to do this now.
I don't mind you playing it, but lower it.
Everything get straightened out?
No, we had a problem. I mean, we tried to do everything we could.
What do you mean?
Well, you know what I mean.
Next.
Little trouble there. You're rushing.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah.
First thing I want to say, man, I can't believe you're freaking sitting upright. Why don't you tell these people, do your name, rank, and serial number and why you're here?
That's awesome. Well, we're in the middle of a tour, 37 shows in 45 days.
Oh, my God.
This is, I think for a second, tonight is show 6 in a row and show 8 of the tour. And it's been awesome. Killer crowds, die-hard fans. Everybody's way into it. Super, super fun.
Man, my back's hurting just sitting here thinking about this. You guys are the proverbial hardest working men in show business right now. Because, I mean, it's like you said, it's nonstop, night after night, get on the bus, travel to the next place. And your shows are not getting done at 10. You told me last night you didn't get out of the venue till 3 a.m.
Yeah. Last night was a little bit later. Yeah, we usually sound check for about an hour and a half. We rehearsed for 3 weeks before the tour every day, except for Sundays, 6 hours a day. And we learned 61 songs. And we're still, refining those songs to get them in the set. And the big one is one of my all-time favorites, Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch. And we put it in the show 2 nights ago in Memphis for the first time. So we got it up and running. And yes, we sound checked for about an hour and a half. And then the show is close to 3 hours long.
Unbelievable, man.
It's a blast.
I also want to set the stage, or let's say set the table for what's going on right now. This is a ridiculous blast of deja vu that I'm having here also. We're in the exact same place, exact same room, exact same setup. I think I'm wearing the same clothes like a year and a half later. We're in the bowels of the Variety Playhouse. In this little, what would you say? I'd say conservatively, this room is what, 8 by 8?
We're very close to each other. It's bigger than the Harry Potter closet, but not by much.
And right next door, we have band members taking showers, so that's special.
That's great. So they smell good for me on stage.
Maybe Sheila's in there right now, right?
Yeah.
But it's an absolute pleasure for those of you who don't know who's sitting across from me here. It's Ryan Brown from the Dweezil Zappa band. One of my very best buds that I've met doing this show, man. I mean, I keep up with this guy. Well, you guys know, I don't even know why I'm telling you all this, because he's been on, this is like the 5th time you've been on the show, man.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And it's been great to meet you and hang with you, and I love it. And like you said, we hit it off, and super fun.
I feel like we probably should have had the mics running for like the last hour and a half, because we've been just hanging out for the last hour and a half.
Actually, I was thinking the same thing a little bit ago. Yeah,
we had a lot of good stuff, and I almost feel like that before we start like really talking. I want you to like call out all these drummers that we were talking about before who need to be on this show. Let's see. We had Sobel.
Glenn
right?
Sobel.
So
yeah.
We got to get him on here.
Yeah, I can hook that up.
See, this is the not so subtle way also, man, of you now have to tell him that we were talking about him on the show, right? So we got to get Sobel on the show. We got to get Sutter.
Jason Sutter. Yeah.
We got to get him on the show. Who else were we talking about? We got to get Bissonette.
Bissonette. Yeah. Kenny Aronoff.
Yeah. And I know there were at least another.
Yeah, that's a pretty good group of 4 dudes to start with.
Can you imagine?
How's that?
The advisory board's going to be busting at the seams because all those guys would have something to add to it. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, those guys are all monsters.
Are they all out in LA right now? Also,
yes, they're all in LA.
You got a pretty good little advisory board just in LA.
The LA advisory board. Yeah,
the advisory board.
I like it. Yeah, we can meet at my house. I'll fly you out.
Yes,
you can come out.
I'd love it.
Yeah. How fun would that be,
dude?
That'd be amazing.
Hey, listen, I have one request.
Yeah,
and I actually got this from Johnstone. Here we go. We're bringing this full circle now, right?
Yeah, who I can walk to his house.
You gotta fly me into Burbank.
Oh.
Don't fly me into LAX. I can't be out there with those freaking animals. You gotta fly me into Burbank, because that's close to both you guys, right?
Oh yeah, dude. Johnstone and I will pick you up, and we'll hold up a huge banner, at the airport. It's not gonna be one of those little signs that says Phil Smith. It's gonna be a massive banner.
See, I was hoping you'd have a driver for me.
He's a pretty good driver. His name's Ryan Brown.
Man, listen. As many times as I've been out there, I have never flown into Burbank. And see, I feel I feel like that would give me a level of not only, I don't want to say celebrity, let's say a level of importance that I don't deserve first. And secondly, that's what everybody wants to do, is you want to fly into there and not have to fly into LAX.
I will tell you, flying in and out of Burbank is one of the greatest things because it's just so easy.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. It's like, my mom is from Montana. It's like, it's sort of flying, like flying into an airport in Montana where there's just nobody there, and it's so easy to get in and out of. Yeah.
Have you flown into this absolute cluster of what we call Hartsfield Airport?
I have a few times.
It's worse than LAX, man. I think
out of control.
It is. It's out of control.
I've been stuck there a few times too.
Yeah, man. You can freaking fly out of there at 1:00 in the morning, and it's like 1:00 in the afternoon. It's the most miserable. I have 10 times more anxiety getting to that airport and flying out of it than I do the flight itself or flying into any place that I've never been before.
Yeah.
The anxiety of this airport is just, there needs to be like a phobia, Hartsfield-decaphobia, something, because it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster, man.
That's LAX is pretty much the same way. It's actually kind of funny because I have a 6-year-old daughter, and whenever she finds out that I'm flying out of LAX and that potentially she might have to sit in the car to go down there, she says, "Oh no, not LAX. I don't want to go to LAX." Even she knows she's 6.
but both of these airports that we're talking about are interminably under construction.
Yeah,
always. I've never been in either of them when they're not under construction. So, you know what? I want to make a suggestion. I want to make a quick suggestion about LAX. And you probably already know this. I don't even know why I'm saying this. There's a great, and this is another full circle thing. We were talking about Greek restaurants earlier.
Yeah.
There's a little Greek restaurant right outside of LAX, right beside the Hertz. Dude, it's right beside the Hertz car rental, and it's called Aliki's. Aliki's Greek Taverna.
Never been there.
Tremendous, man. Tremendous. You've got, let me say this though. You got no business going, that area. You got no business going down that area unless you've got to take a flight, right? But go to Aliki's Greek Taverna.
I hope we get sponsored by them. We'll get some shirts. I'll get a sticker to put on the bass drum head. I'll get the free meal for life card, and then I'll go down there all the time.
Those people barely speak English. I've only been there. I've only been to that place one time.
How did you wind up there?
Well, I'll tell you. Funny that you ask. The last time I was in LA was a little over a year ago, It was right before, if you recall, when we did the first episode.
Yeah.
You remember I had been back about 3 weeks when you were here, right?
Yep.
And I had done that old hack thing of renting the tourist convertible, driving up the Pacific Coast Highway. Remember that?
Yep.
Stayed in San Francisco for a while, drove back down, right, on Highway 5, and ended up staying close to the airport, right? And so my wonderful, industrious, and over-researching wife had found well before we ever went out there that this was a great place, right, to eat. It's a little hole in the wall.
Awesome.
It's beside this motel that I swear to God, but you better be packing heat because it's the most horrifying, kind of a flop house motel, and it's the parking lot's attached to it. But everybody's like, you got to go there. It's fantastic. So we went, and it was great. That's how I found it.
I'm gonna have to go down there sometime now.
Take your bazooka.
My bazooka. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. But like I said, man, it's one of those places that I know how it is out there. As far as like it on a good day from where you live.
Yeah.
It would probably take you on a good day about 35, 40 minutes to get there. Probably.
Yeah, even like in the middle of the night, it's about like 45 or so. Yeah, so I end up Ubering down there a lot in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Because you would have to take 405, right, to get down that direction.
There's a couple different ways.
Yeah.
I can also take the 5 down to the 110 and kind of to the 10, 105, kind of scoot over, depending on how traffic is. But
and again, for those of you who are listening that have no idea what we're talking about, that when you live in a place like LA or Atlanta, which suffers greatly from LA-itis, you have to think in terms of about 17 different alternate routes using a weird mishmash of interstates, side roads, state highways.
My first job in LA was working as an editorial production assistant on a movie called Woman on Top that starred Penelope Cruz.
Wow.
Which is a whole other story how that even happened. But I got that gig and it was fantastic because my job was to take stuff and drive it around different parts of the city. And I'd been in LA for, like a week. I had no idea how to get around. It was the perfect job because I got to figure out how to get all over the city. And, I had to, pick up film at, someplace and take it to Deluxe to have them develop the film, to pick up the film, to take it to a place to do post-production work out in Glendale. So I got to know all that stuff really fast. And
I somehow feel like, man, you overinflated your position on that job with a fancy name when it should have been Gopher.
I didn't come up with that name. I think the industry overinflated that name, and you're right. Yeah,
the industry.
Yeah. That was their name for me who went to get people lunch.
Now that we were talking about LA and talking about Burbank, I want to ask you: do you either know or visit or had any work done by Chris Hoyer, I think is his name.
Hewer.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I've never met him.
But he's in Burbank, right?
Yeah. And I'm not kidding. Every single drummer I know knows him. I saw he popped up in my feed on Facebook yesterday because he just finished a drum for a good friend of mine, Chris Alice. Everybody, I've just never met him. I haven't had anything that's needed to be worked on yet. But he's amazing. I've heard incredible stories about him fixing up stuff.
I was going to say, I know a few guys that say that he is borderline shamanic, demonic of taking these drums that were supposedly beyond repair and fixing them, cutting new edges on. He's like the bearing edge.
He's
king,
the edge guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, like this drum that he just fixed up for my friend Chris Alice, like it was like in somebody's attic and it had been rewrapped. It was some really old drum, and Chris, figured out that underneath it was like an original black lacquer and it was an artist's model. And so he, gingerly takes off the wrap and refinishes the whole thing and it looks like it's brand new.
I've heard
amazing.
nothing
Yeah.
but good stuff about that guy.
Yep, me too. Yeah.
You guys have
Yeah.
got something going on out there in L.A. You guys are a well-kept secret. Nobody knows about L.A. And no, that's amazing, man. And, you know, I just completely and totally glossed over the fact we need to tell these kids that you're here with Dweezil Zappa.
I am. Yeah. Yeah.
We just completely glossed over that. That whole topic's going to become somewhat important when we start talking about what we're supposed to be talking about.
That will be useful piece of information, probably. Yeah. Yeah. We're on the Choice Cuts tour.
Yeah.
Like I said, 37 shows, and we, on this run, we just got back from Australia a little bit ago. That was kind of the end of the previous tour, and that tour was 97 shows in total. And then we're going to go to Europe this summer in July, and then there's going to be a whole other thing this fall from like roughly the end of October through mid-December. There'll be a whole other run of about this the one we're on now is 6.5 weeks. There'll be another one of those in the fall.
It is sincerely a full-time gig now.
Yeah. And for me, it's a dream gig.
Oh, I know.
I'm so like every night. I'm not kidding. I've said this on here before, but I sit there every night and I look at Dweezil and I, while I'm playing, Flakes or some song I've listened to since I was 13, and I'm like, I get to do this. This is crazy.
Did I tell you what my favorite tune was, man, that you guys did when I saw you last year?
No.
Apostrophe.
Well, thank you. I heard that because I listened to your show, because your show is awesome. And I heard you. Thank you for the really nice shout out on the Jim Gordon thing. But thanks. Thanks for that. That was super fun. That song.
I dug the whole gig, man. But there was something about, because you guys did it as a trio.
Yeah.
There was something about that, man, that was just, it was, that's a really powerful tune anyway. You know what I mean? It's a really powerful song, and you guys just freaking knocked it out of the park, man.
Well, thank you.
When you did it. And it was really cool also. Now I'm going to freaking get teary-eyed when I says my daughter was sitting right next to me, when he did it. Thanks for the tickets, by the way.
Oh,
she was sitting there, and she even still mentions it, because I told her the other day that you and I were going to be doing this again, and she was like, "Oh, that's awesome," because she's got great, memories of, that's one of those things you do with your kids, Well, she'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Here, all of a sudden, Dad's the big shot. Now he's hanging out with the guys from Zappa. That's just one of those things, man. That your kids never forget that kind of stuff, because she's been seeing me playing gigs and knowing me going out on the road and doing this show, and it's no big deal. Nothing. It doesn't mean anything to her, right? But all of a sudden, Dad's hanging out with some of their buddies, and all of a sudden now he's the big shot. So, so she remembered it, man, and it was very cool, man.
Well, thank you. I'm glad she had a good time. I'm glad she could come hang out at the show.
Oh yeah. She'll never forget it.
It was a fun show. It was a cool theater. That place in Knoxville.
It was the Bijou, man. It's a place.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a legendary place. I think I vibed you out that day and told you that I saw Buddy Rich play there.
Yeah. Yeah. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, man. Buddy played there at that gig. Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of stuff happens a lot at these venues, which I love the history of some of these older venues. I mean, even last night. Where were we last night?
Well, you were in Birmingham, man.
Gosh, yeah.
So there's probably a couple of good places you could have played over there. Did you play the Civic Center?
We were at Saturn. But yeah, there was a guy last night that said, "Hey," because we've been doing the Black Page every night, 1 and 2, and and it's fun when this happens. So this guy said, "Hey, it was great to see you do the Black Page. Last time I saw Black Page was here when Bozio and Wackerman came and did it on that stage."
Wow. Yeah.
So it's just fun. Hearing those kinds of things. There's a place we played in Buffalo, where Zeppelin played. And I mean, even in LA, like playing the Whiskey, we've talked about Rush. I'm a diehard Rush fan. And, I have a bootleg of Rush playing the Whiskey from 74.
Yeah.
It's just fun playing those places. And by the way, the whole famous thing of hearing the band say, "Good night, Detroit," when they're in Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's real, because you have no idea where you are.
Oh, of course.
when you're on the road for a long time.
If you've got a somewhat savvy tour manager, they'll put a little paper up, on the side of the wall that says, "Hey guys, we're here, and this is what you need to be doing."
We have it on our set list.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But you guys, again, to vibe you out a little bit, but you're past it now. You played the New Daisy Theater in Memphis.
Yeah.
On that stage, I can't begin to tell you who all I've seen in that theater, man. I saw Al Foster play with Sonny Rollins in that theater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh. Yeah. There's been some really,
that's crazy.
really major acts and just fantastic musicians, man, have played that little theater. And it's a cool little vibey room too, man.
Yeah, that was a great room.
Yeah.
I'd never been to Memphis before.
Yeah.
It was just cool to go to Memphis. Yeah.
Did you get to eat any barbecue while you were there by any chance?
You know, you're gonna laugh. I thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah.
Phil sent me a couple of good places. I did not go there because we were in Kansas City the day before.
Okay.
And Sheila and I went out and got so much barbecue that I had it for 2 meals. So the day before, so we got to Memphis and I was a little barbecued out.
I got you.
So,
you know, the only argument that I would have toward that entire thing is that the barbecue is slightly different.
It's different,
in Memphis than it is in Kansas City. And the thing that I wanted you to, and you'll be there again. The thing that I wanted you to experience, there's a handful of barbecue places that are over in Memphis, and a few of them are touristy, right? And they're still good. Don't get me wrong, they're still good. But I was the ones that I recommended, man, are slightly off the beaten path. They're
nice.
Tourists do go to them and whatnot, but they're the places that the locals go also, right?
Awesome.
And one one of them that I told you is one of those also that you might need to be packing heat to get to. But I don't know if I mentioned it to you when I sent it to you, but it's a really good place. And the biggest thing that I would tell you that's going to be different between that and a Kansas City barbecue, first off, virtually all the barbecue you're going to get in Memphis is going to be pork, right?
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. And then secondly, the other thing is that the sauces that you get in Memphis traditionally are not quite as sweet as the ones that you would get in Kansas City. They'll be a little thinner and maybe just a hair more vinegary.
Yeah.
Is what they are. But the other thing is that my favorite Memphis barbecue are when you get the ribs with the dry rub.
Yeah.
You get the dry rub ribs and then you put the sauce on it if you want it, or dip it in the sauce if you want it, man. And so that's the Drummer's Weekly Groovecast recommendation for barbecue.
No, we got to go deeper for a second.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw out 2 more places if anybody's on the road. So my favorite place is in Austin, Texas, called Ironworks.
Okay.
That's because I love barbecue, which is why I was bummed. I couldn't do it in Memphis because I had so much the day before. And there's another great place in Asheville, North Carolina, called 12 Bones.
Been there. Yeah.
I love that place too. Yeah.
Yeah. The Carolina sauce has a tendency, or the ones that they like to say that sets them apart is the mustard-based sauce. You know, now I could take it or leave that, but the actual method of barbecuing is equally good there.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you one other quick thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get you in trouble, but I think it's going to be totally fine because you mentioned that they said it was okay. Tell everybody, we'll say the Reader's Digest version of this badass snare drum.
Yeah.
That you're using tonight that I got a chance to play on just a few minutes ago.
Yeah. So
this is worth your time. Trust me.
This is amazing. We're on the road all the time. We have a lot of amazing, super nice, diehard fans who come to tons of shows, follow us around. And we played a show in San Antonio, and I did a clinic that day at Sam Ash in San Antonio for this amazing guy that runs the department there, Jonathan Herbert. He goes by Drumbo. And he invited me out. Awesome guy. So I did this clinic there. I met another guy there named Alan Davis. And he said to me after he saw a couple of shows, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to build you a snare drum." With amazing thoughts. Super sweet of him to mention that. Now, people will, say stuff like that a lot, and I thought, oh, this guy's so nice. That's a really nice thought. That's probably not going to happen, just because life, gets in the way, and, you don't know what's, people are going to follow through on stuff, and I would never expect anybody to anyway. So he said that to me, and a few months later, I get this message from him, and he's like, "Hey, Ryan, chopping down trees in my backyard." And I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Oh my god, he's doing it. He's making this snare drum." I couldn't believe it. So he makes me this drum. He's never made a drum before ever. He made 2. He made one for me and one for Drumbo, for our mutual friend. And he just taught himself how to do it. He looked up online, figured out how to do it. Now he's retired, but this guy Alan is clearly amazing with wood and building stuff. Like I can't build anything like that. There's not a chance in hell I would be able to do something like that. So he's very handy and can do this stuff already with wood. So he looks up how to do it, chops down trees, and so it's maple, mesquite, walnut, and zebra wood. And he proceeds to send me photos of the entire process of him making a stave snare drum for me. So it's, and I should count, but I'd say it's roughly like 40 pieces,
all those different woods.
So it's roughly, like 10 pieces each of those four kinds of woods in like alternating order, roughly 1 inch wide. And so he just starts sending me photos of just this super, super nice guy who's a big fan of ours, massive Frank Zappa fan, has been forever. And he starts making me and Drumbo these snare drums. And he sends me the drum in the mail. I got it on Halloween. Oh, no, not for, I got it on Halloween. Yeah, right. And I didn't tell you this. The drum is named. The name of the drum is Harvey.
That's my dog.
Really?
That's my schnauzer.
That's awesome. He named it Harvey because of the hurricane.
Okay.
So he's outside of San Antonio, and he was making it while the hurricane was going through Texas, and he actually his wife took a picture of him sanding the drum out in the hurricane. Now it wasn't like it's not like he's in the eye of the hurricane, but like the hurricane, the winds are gusting by while he's outside working on the drum. That's a dedicated man.
Yeah.
So he named the drum Harvey because of that. So he it's written in there, Harvey, and that's how we refer to him.
Amazing.
So he sends me the drum. I have a lot of snare drums. This drum sounds...
But Harvey...
Dude, this drum sounds amazing.
Are you sure Harvey identifies as a male? I don't want to get too LA into...
No, I'm not sure. We
can start calling him Zim. Sorry, man. Keep going.
I think Harvey's a chick. Yeah. So I bring it to rehearsals. We start rehearsing for Dweezil, and I bring it in, and our sound guy Iran he's like, man, that drum sounds amazing. And I'd used it on one session, and and I hit it. I used it on a bunch of gigs, and every time I hit it, I was like, man, this drum sounds great. And I wasn't really sure how good it's or how good it would fit in, and we all know there's a difference between what it sounds like when we're on top of it playing to what it sounds like translating to a theater and everything else involved. So
much less how a microphone hears it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I throw it up. We start using it at rehearsals. Sound guy, Iran, Dweezil are like, oh my God, this drum sounds amazing. So we start this tour, and we record every show.
Yeah.
And we listen to it on the bus afterwards. The drum is ridiculous. He's never made a drum before in his life. And then he wanted to, he was like, I want to make one more. And he knew my connection to Kenny. And for those of you who don't know, I studied with Kenny Aronoff for 4 years in college. And so I hooked him up with Kenny. So he made one more for Kenny. So now there's 3 that exist. And I told Alan, I said, hey, you should maybe think about starting a company. He was like, hell no. He's like, I'm not starting. He's like, I'm not doing that.
Killed him making that.
Yeah,
one.
He's like, I'm not. No way. So now, like, it does, like, the recordings. It sounds great, and it's like roughly 4 dB quieter than the previous drum I was using, which is great because I can lay into it, and it's a little bit down, so it doesn't poke out in the mix. And so now Iran, our sound guy, every day he's like, hey, you got to call Alan and have him make you a backup. And I'm like, I don't know if I can ask him to do that or not. I was like, clearly I'll pay him to do that if he'll even do it. I don't know if he'll do it again. But the drum, it's amazing. The whole step, every step of the way, Alan was like, hey, what kind of finish do you want? What kind of hoops do you want? What kind of throw off do you want? What kind of bearing edge do you want? He's just the nicest guy in the world. It's unbelievably flattering to have somebody do something like that for you. I mean, he puts so much time into it.
It's amazing to me that here's a guy that has never even thought about making a drum, much less have the gear to make a drum.
Yeah.
But the guy makes a drum, and he gets the freaking bearing edges right.
Yeah.
Whereas, like we just talked about Chris Hewer a few minutes ago,
Yeah,
he makes a living on correcting drum companies who've been making drums for 200 years and fixing bearing edges. It's astounding to me.
It is, yeah. And I forgot to tell you too, we just talked to Kurt Morgan, my bass player here a second ago. So Alan wrote Kurt and told Kurt he wants to make him a bass cabinet.
I would just say go ahead.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know if you're listening to this, man. Send some drums and we'll be glad to review them on the show. We do gear reviews on here. I'll be happy to review a drum. Did I mention we don't send gear back whenever they send you know? But that's a great story. And, you know, as a non sequitur, having met Kurt just a few minutes ago, and also and then meeting some of the other guys in the crew, and then Dweezil was here just a little while ago, is everybody in the band, aside from you, like, is it mandatory they have to be like under 5'9" or 5'10"? Or is everybody's really small? It seems like it's in this group. Except you're like 6'3", aren't you?
I am. Yeah. It's funny because we do shows, and you know, I'm sitting down the whole show, and then we stand up at the end to do bows. And every night, like, I stand up and there's always people in the front row. They're looking at me and they're like, "Oh my God, you're huge!" And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, dude, I felt like I was towering over everybody earlier. So, and I'm like scraping 6 feet, man. I'm like, on a good day, I'm 6 feet when I'm standing up straight. But
the height thing is, that you guys, the listeners, will get a kick out of this. So I've been super lucky to have a couple of guys that you will know sit in with us.
Hey, man,
and
we've already broken everyone's foot listening to this show by dropping names at the beginning of it. So go ahead and say Vinny and Terry and all these go ahead and say it.
And I'm only saying it because of the height thing, because this is a good lesson. And I tell my students this all the time. That's honestly what made me think of this is so Vinny shows that he sat in with us twice, and I'm way taller than he. I mean, he's not short, but I'm considerably taller. And this is one of my favorite lessons I tell students all the time. People go to jam sessions and they move all the gear around to play one song. You know, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm not ready yet." You know, raise, lower, all this stuff. They get invited to sit in on a gig and they raise and lower all this stuff. This is the definition of a professional for me, is he shows up, and I said to him, pretty much, I was like, "You're God. You can," I was like, "You can do anything you want. You can raise, lower, anything." I didn't say it in those words, of course. I was like, "You can move anything you want, throne, whatever, do anything you want." And he sits down, and he says, "Wow, everything's really far away," because I'm considerably bigger than he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I said again, I was like, "Move anything." He goes, "Hold on, let me play for 5 minutes." He turns around, he plays for 5 minutes. He turns back, he's like, "I'm good."
Didn't move anything.
He didn't move one thing to play a couple of songs.
What did he play?
In front of 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Didn't move anything. So now when I'm teaching, and somebody comes up and raises the snare drum, now I'm like, you know what? Just deal with it, because if Vinny can deal with it, you can deal with it, and you can adapt and figure out how to do it.
What tunes did Vinny play?
So the first time he came, he played "Outside Now."
Okay.
And Pound for a Brown.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the second time he did "Keep It Greasy."
Oh, he picked an easy one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like a blues, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe there was, I can't remember if there was another tune. Maybe it was just "Keep It Greasy" at that second.
No, that's about 8 tunes in one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it still was just mind blowing to me. It was great. He was just like, no. He was like, "It's your kid. I'm not going to move anything." And I couldn't believe it. Really? Nothing.
it for some reason that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought about it a lot. Like in that moment, I thought, he moved to LA, like everybody else picked a city and went there and played in bands and worked his way up through the ranks, and just
he's pretty good.
It's insane. It's insane.
Now that we've now officially broken everyone's feet because we've been dropping all these names, I will go ahead and say, completely unabashedly unashamed, that he's the only guy that I've tried to get a hold of that two things. One, I've actually got his phone number, but I'm scared to death to call him. And then the second thing is this: I've also got his social media and have actually reached out to him those ways.
I thought you were going to say social security number for a second.
No, but this guy is, he's either so busy or has no idea how to use it that I can tell if he's actually he hasn't read my message. He hasn't even looked at him. Not surprising, I suppose, right?
He's busy.
He's a little bit, but I don't, let me tell you, I have had the stones to reach out and call just everybody else. Anybody I've called, I'm not even going to say the people that I've called, that I've talked to. To just completely call them, cold call. But I haven't called Vinny. Yet. Yeah. So, yeah. But I it was one of those, I got his number from somebody that said, yeah, call him. I can't do it, man. I can't call him. I don't know what it is. But 99% of all the other people, man, it's just, I can hang out with them and it's just awesome. And there's something, man, I feel like I would be weird around him.
I totally get
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it would be weird around him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be weird around him.
It's gonna happen though.
Yeah.
I feel like it's gonna happen sometime.
There's just something. He seems like the nicest guy you would.
He's the sweetest guy in the world. He was unbelievable. Yeah, he was amazing. Yeah.
What are you guys going to be playing tonight? I know you said you had 61 tunes that you guys rehearsed. There's no way you can do 61.
We can't.
tonight.
Yeah.
You do what? If you're doing, it's about 3 hours, right?
Yeah, it's like last night was about 3 hours. Last night I think we did like 33 songs.
I'm surprised because having seen you guys and knowing how you stretch out on a lot of these tunes, I'm surprised you got that many in.
You see, in Frank's catalog is so vast. Some tunes are 1 minute long.
Sure.
And then there's others that are 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
And then we'll string them together. We have a lot of segues. That run like 6 songs in a row. Things like that. We're also doing a lot of really cool stuff on this tour where we're taking different versions of songs and piecing them together. Like the song Rollo. There's a couple different versions and we're just putting them together and doing them back to back. Dog breath variations. And then there's a vocal dog breath, an instrumental dog breath. And then there's a version that the band did with Chester Thompson and George Duke where they went into Uncle Meat and they called it Dog Meat. We're doing all the dog breath meats in a row.
The dog medley.
It is the dog medley. Yeah.
And again, to tie it all together, you're playing on Harvey the Snare, which is the name of my schnauzer. So awesome. It all works beautifully.
I'm going to send you a picture of the snare, and then you can take a picture of Harvey the dog.
What do you mean Harvey take a picture? I'll show you a picture right now, man. I'm going to break out my phone right now. So are you guys doing any Dweezil material?
We are. Actually,
what are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing 2 songs. Actually, we're doing the song Love Ride, which we did a little rearrangement of, which has been super fun. And one of my favorite songs, Dragon Master, which is on his record Via Zamata that I was fortunate enough to play on. Right. And that's the only song that he actually co-wrote with his dad.
Wow, that's very cool. There's Harvey.
Yeah. Oh, what's up, Harvey? Nice. How old's Harvey?
Harvey is 6, and he got a bath today.
Oh, nice.
which is more than I can say for a lot of the guys in Dweezil's band. All right, you guys are having to taking showers next door.
Yeah. Well, but I always smell good for you because I shower at night.
I know.
So
man,
I'm the one dude that showers at night, and I always see you in the morning. Well, morning.
Morning's
is relative, but yeah, morning for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always smell like flowers.
You do, man. Smell like flowers. That's You know, the other thing that I think is interesting or should be interesting to the listeners is that you being the responsible young man that you are, I so distinctly remember you telling me that when you go out on the road with these guys, that you make it a point to turn your days around to where the gig is actually in your most productive part of the day, like midday.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you've got the 7:30 or 8 o'clock hit, you try to make that be like 11 a.m. or like 10 a.m. or like maybe noon or something like that, right?
Yep. I figured that out.
So you sleep till like about 3:30 or so, something.
I do.
Except for today.
Yeah, except for today.
Yeah.
Because Drummer's Weekly Groovecast
Right.
is the place to be.
You hear that, Vinny?
Yeah. Yeah, I figured that out on my first tour kind of by accident. You know, and then just, you know, I started staying up late, and then it hit me one day. I was like, this feels good, you know, because I've only, you know, show starts at 8 and I've been up for, you know, 5-6 hours instead of being the end of the day. Because, you know, like I said, like we do like an hour and a half long sound check, 3-hour show. So, you know, 5 hours of playing. And it just feels way better to me if I do it, you know, where for my body clock, it's midday, which is all fun. And then until I get home.
Yeah.
And then it takes me a while to flip it back. It takes me a while to kind of flip into it and then to flip it back. But seriously, it works really well. It works great for me.
It's like tour lag is what it is instead of jet lag.
Yeah. It is basically. Yeah.
You know, with that whole thing in mind, I think it's important to also note that I keep up with you on social media. And I see.
Thank you.
There was one time that I noted that you made this post, and it was like at 4:30 in the morning, and you and Sheila were eating tacos you had made. That's insanity, man.
Touring makes you crazy.
Unbelievable. Well, you had a Hungry Man TV dinner at 3:30, didn't you, last night?
You better believe it. I bought it at a gas station. That's even the best part. Yeah, we finished the show. A lot of times you finish the show and nothing's open. You know, especially on weeknight.
Yeah.
On weeknights, there's, you know, nothing to, you know, you're in, you know, Knoxville. I mean, well, it's a little different in college towns, but you know, some other cities there's just nothing open. Even the pizza places aren't delivering anymore. So
right.
I mean, and I remember the first time I ever even thought about nutrition and drumming on the road at all was at a Bobby Rock clinic. Like when I was like 13, you know,
what
or 14.
happened to that guy, by the way?
He plays with Lita Ford.
Now
Now
he does.
Yeah, he's killing it. Yeah, with a friend of mine, Marty O'Brien, playing bass. Yeah,
got it.
Yeah, and I remember him. I remember it was funny because I remember you know, I was like in middle school, or maybe I might have been 14, like freshman in high school, and he came through and he had this amazing PV drum kit that was airbrushed to look like the Sistine Chapel. And I remember, you know, couldn't wait to hear him play, and, you know, phenomenal drummer. And then I remember half of it was about nutrition and being healthy on the road. And when you're 14, I was like, I don't care. Like, and then fast forward a few years later, I was like, oh wow, that was actually, you know, one of the most informative clinics ever.
Yeah.
It just took a while to, you know, at that age, I was like, I want to hear about how you cook your asparagus when you're on the road. And now I'm like, oh wait, actually that's a good idea.
Do you know?
Which is why I had a Hungry Man dinner at 3:30 in the morning.
do you know him? Do you know Bobby?
You know, no, I don't. I know, I know people that know him.
Is he in LA?
I don't know where he lives, actually. I want to say no, but I don't know. I know
I've got to tell a story.
Yeah.
I've got to tell this story.
Bro, I want to hear it.
And this he will either, if he ever listens to this or ever gets wind of this, there's only going to be two reactions to this. He's going to hate me and this show and will spit on every episode that ever comes out, or he will acknowledge it and laugh like it's the greatest thing. Because to me, it's the latter. It's the freaking greatest thing. It made an impression on me, I'll tell you that, man. Back in 1990, I was at the Progressive Arts Society convention in Philadelphia. I was in undergraduate school up at Knoxville at the University of Tennessee, but it was in it was in Philadelphia. And I'll even tell you where it was, man. It was at the Adams Mark Hotel way out in West Philly.
Dude,
that's where it was.
Love it.
Okay?
Love it.
So for anybody who's been to these conventions before, it is, I'll say, 2/3 tweed jacket sort of professors and whatnot, right?
Yep.
That are pining to get these papers, read before these groups, where they present these pedagogical papers. And I can get down with that, man. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But we go to these things to see guys teach something, right? To do clinics. Bobby Rock was on this. Okay. And this was, again, think in terms of like fall of 1990.
Was this the Sistine Chapel kit?
It might have been, man.
I feel like that was because I would have been 14. So that sounds about like the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was coming out of my first term in prison. I was on parole at that time, right? So I was at this clinic and I was sitting there and, it's a bunch of these dudes wearing corduroy jackets with the patches on the sleeves, right? And so he gets up there and he starts his clinic out like probably 75% of most of them. And he's blowing. He's up there, he's playing. And he's playing good, man. I mean, nobody will ever tell you, man, this guy can't play. He can play.
Oh, yeah. He can play.
People might bag on him, for like being the workout guy and, the big hair and all the other stuff. I could care less about that, man. But he's up there, he's playing. He's playing good. And it's a big old conference center ballroom of, man, there's probably at least 700-800 dudes sitting in there, right? So he plays for maybe like a good solid 7-8 minutes. And then he does the old rock and roll move where he stops, puts a foot up on the bass drum, leans over the toms, and puts his hands behind his ears like, I can't hear you guys.
Love it.
Dude, you could have heard crickets in that place. And dude, check this out. Sitting up on the front row, there's maybe like half a dozen fanboy rockers that kind of give him the sympathy applause. I felt so bad for Bobby. He didn't have to do that. And he shouldn't have done that. But he played his tail off, man. But it was so uncomfortable. But it's one of the great memories I have at PASIC. Bobby Rock, we love you, man.
Oh, he's phenomenal. That's a great story.
That's a good story, though.
I almost wonder if he did it like knowing that it was all the corduroy. Like if he was like, I just want to see what's going to happen.
That makes it so much better.
Yeah, right?
Oh, my God. There's your out, Bobby. If that was the case, say you did that because that makes you a hero. That was so good, man, that he did that, if that's the case. Let's just say that he did that.
He did. It was amazing.
So now we're going to freaking shift and turn gears again here. Do you know what you're going to play tonight?
No. No idea.
That's pretty cool. You're going to play Keep It Greasy?
So probably. Yeah, we've done it the last 7 or 8, whatever it's been, shows in a row. Yeah, so he makes the set list every night, not kidding, like 5 to 10 minutes before we go on.
Cool.
So we never really know. And like I said, we're really lucky. We have a lot of fans that follow us. Like there was a guy I met last night who's coming he came last night in Birmingham, tonight in Atlanta, tomorrow Macon. He's coming to 3 in a row. That happens a lot where people will drive. It's really, really, really awesome that people will do that. So Dweezil will change it up. We'll change it up.
That's nice.
Because it'll be, give the people some different stuff. So I don't know. Now there's certain blocks of stuff I can kind of predict that will probably be in there.
And he does throw you guys the courtesy bone, so to speak, of you do have that hour and a half of sound check / sound check rehearsal to where if there's something you haven't done, say since you were rehearsing, that at least you got a shot to hit it in there. Well, maybe not.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's so many songs. So whenever we play, fans will start yelling out songs. So like, for example, now this is one we've done, a lot. And tonight is, I want to say like my 339th show with him.
Give or take.
Yeah. Not that I'm counting. I'm counting. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like 338, 339, something like that. So like a few nights ago, somebody yelled out Cosmic Debris. We haven't played Cosmic for a while. And so we did it.
You did it in Knoxville.
Yeah. Right. I remember we did it then. I've probably done it 200 times. We haven't done it for a long time. So we did it. My first show ever, he called a tune I'd never played before. He called Muffin Man.
Oh yeah.
And he just, he turned around, but he knew I was, I'm a diehard fan, and thankfully know the catalog, and that's not one that, it's not in 1916. So, but my point is stuff can happen where, something can go in that we haven't done in a long time.
This is the appropriate time for me to say also, I'm very happy for you on a very personal note that you're getting to do Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch, because that was, if you recall, when we did your Rorschach test, I asked you what song you wanted to play, and that was it. Tell me that Dweezil listened to that show.
I can't believe you remember that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, so what was really fun this time, we got back from Australia, New Zealand, and we all sat in a room and collectively kind of picked songs to go through. And Chris Norton, keyboard player, and I have been pushing Drowning Witch for as long as I've been in the band, because that's one of my all-time favorite songs ever.
Yeah.
So we've been pushing that. We've been pushing it. So we kind of got that in there.
Does Wackerman ever come out?
He has not come out.
Because he was on that album, right?
Yeah, he was on that. Yeah, he's absolutely phenomenal. I've met him once at a clinic when I was like 15 or 16. Since I've gotten this gig, I've not met him. We have mutual friends, and I'd love to reach out to him and get together. Yeah, I've hung with Terry a few times. I got to help Terry set up his drum set in Milwaukee one time.
It took about a week.
It actually this was pretty crazy. He has a tech. It was Terry, his tech, my good friend Vic Salazar, that you may know because he used to have his shop, Vic's Drums,
That's what
in
drum
Chicago.
shop.
Yeah. And another good friend, Nick Kapka from Sabian.
Oh, I thought you were going with Kafka there for a minute. I was going to say, that's a nice reference. Yeah.
And myself, there were 5 of us setting up Terry's kit. In the amount of time I was there, we started the same time that my crew started on setting up 7 of us at the same time in another venue in Milwaukee. And our crew of 2 people got the ZPZ gear up in less amount of time than the 5 of us could get Terry's kit up.
You know who this is dedicated to, this story? Is to my faithful companion and podcaster, John Chalden. He is having an epileptic fit right now in the floor just thinking about that size of a drum set and having to set it up. He's losing his mind listening to this right now.
It was amazing to, it was cool because, I mean, all of us, we've all set up drums. Let me check my watch 8 trillion times.
Yeah.
It was cool to see how he does it. And
It's got
how
like
it's
an
pieced
assembly
together.
line.
It's like they just take it all out and they just put it like on the floor of the venue. But there's like these plates of it, like these metal plates that all the pedals are. There's like 8 pedals that are already on one plate. So it's like pull out a plate, 8 pedals are done. Pull out another plate, 8 pedals. Now they're they're not linked up obviously,
Wow.
but it's like plate, pedals are done. And then the other interesting thing to me was that the cymbals. They leave the cymbal. They don't take the cymbals off of the boom arms. They just take the boom arms out and put them with the cymbals on in a case.
That seems incredibly risky to me.
And I talked to him about that, and it's because it's all. And I have a couple of the radio lines, things on my kit, and they're super thick.
Sure, they're
And
real
his
platy. Yeah,
yeah. And his text said, well, they're super thick, so they won't break going in that way, and it saves a ton of time.
Oh, I'm sure, because
I can't even imagine.
What are there, like
yeah,
50 symbols on that kit?
Don't even know. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, something like that. So that was interesting to me. It was just boom arm out, done. And even with that, we still didn't get it set up, and I had to go back to my sound check, of which everything of the 7-piece band was set up. Yeah, it was really an amazing day.
How long would you say you were there helping him set up?
4.5 hours, something like that. And we weren't done.
And
I had to go.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
I wonder how long it takes him to tear it down, because it's probably just him and the other guy and the tech tearing it down.
I mean, talk about a labor of love.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that it takes that long. And you go watch him play. It's one of the most amazing things ever.
Yeah, it is.
And you don't really. I mean, you realize, because there's so much stuff, but I don't know if anybody really realizes how much time he personally even puts into putting that up. Like, it's a massive undertaking.
Well, it's a complete and total labor of love, man, because he did a thing. I didn't get a chance to see it, but he was here in town. I don't know, maybe a year ago.
I think it was when we were here. It was like within a day of when we were here. Yeah. We were like almost following each other on the road.
Right.
That's yeah.
And he was down at the City Winery, and he was doing just a solo gig down there. And a buddy of mine went down there, and he said that it was him and his tech, and they were in like a large rider or something like that, and just driving that thing around. Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing. And 14-year-old me was just losing his mind.
Yeah. Well, now that we've talked for an hour about just catching up and everything, I want to ask you about what we originally said we were going to talk about. And this is a very ungraceful segue, but I don't care. We'll talk about some odd times.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you in particular about a few tunes. We've already talked about Keep It Greasy, right?
Yeah.
And from a complete and total drum geek musician standpoint, when you're playing that tune, and not the choruses, the odd time part, that, of course, that we're talking about.
Yeah.
When you were learning that thing, were you literally counting, or did you just like, okay, I've got the groove, this is it, and I'm looping it into oblivion until I can feel 19?
And that, my friend, is the $1 million question. And this comes up after shows every day, because of course there's tons of drummers that come to shows. So I talk about this with cats every day.
And
after
see,
shows.
now you just say, you point them to this episode and go, look, dude, the answer's there.
Yeah, I'll say, hey, what is this episode? 90?
It's going to be like 91 or 90. It's either 91 or 92.
I'll be like 91. Peace. Just walk away. Drop the mic. Yeah. Yeah. That's the big thing, is internalizing all this stuff. And, thankfully, we've talked about this before. I've listened to the music forever, so it's sort of in my DNA already. That said, there's a difference between listening to it and playing it and translating it that way. And then the big thing, and this is a huge thing for everybody on any gig, there's a difference between playing with the record and then being the bus driver, driving the bus, and knowing, because we all know, you play along with records and you hear stuff that's like, oh, well, here's where this is going to end. It doesn't have to be a Frank record, any record. There's a difference between that and directing traffic and making sure everybody knows exactly what's happening. So there's kind of this process for me of like, just getting the grooves down, figuring out what's happening, then figuring out how long those parts go on for, and then just running it a million times, and then until muscle memory takes over.
Okay.
And and so that is so greasy. So like the first verse, so it's 1916. It's 11 bars of 1916 plus 1 E and a 2, stopping on 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second verse is in 21.
Right.
And it's essentially 4.5, basically.
Right.
4.5 bars. So you just run it just over and over and over. Actually, last night, it's funny we're talking about that. Last night there was a really, really funny moment in Greasy. We did the first verse of Greasy, and there was a guy in the crowd, like 5 rows back, right in front of me, standing. And this has never happened before. This is really funny. We do the 1916 part, and we all stop because we've done it, 500 times, whatever. So. We nail it, and this guy literally looks at me, makes eye contact with me, and just throws his hands up in the air, and he's just like what? But like the visual, like I actually started laughing out loud because he actually threw his hands up in the air and just shook his head and like I don't even know what just happened.
Would you say, man, that out of all of these tunes that you play, which would 90% of them have some sort of an odd time signature?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Right?
Yeah, somewhere, some weird little thing. Yeah.
That the hardest one for you to cop? Was that the hardest one for you to actually learn and be able to feel 19 and then 21?
No,
really.
I feel like it's not. There's some other stuff that is weirder because it might be following a vocal line.
Yeah.
Whereas that one, the vocals are in 4,
right,
going over all that other stuff. But there's some other stuff that doesn't feel. Not that feels natural.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form. There's other things to me that feel less natural, or like certain little weird things here and there that you just kind of have to do until it just kind of drives it into your muscle memory.
Let me go a different way with this. Let me approach the 19 and the 21 a different way.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say you've got to teach a student that. Okay. Because I want to make a comparison to another song that's in 17. I want to talk about this in a minute.
Yeah.
But let's say you have to teach somebody this, okay? And more importantly, let's say you don't have on your phone or in your possession an MP3 where you can play it for them, right? Is there a certain way you can tell them in terms of subdivision as far as like, okay, look, listen, when we're in this 19, I want you to be thinking this and this and this.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, and this actually happens after every show. I end up telling somebody asks, and so this ends up happening. So
now you just go 91.
yeah, exactly, totally 91. Mic drop. So I always I don't give anybody the answers. I make them think about it. So I always say
master.
I always start off with saying, okay, so in one bar of 4/4, how many 16th notes are there?
Oh, and half of them go, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm playing along 16, Mr. Brown.
Okay, good job. I'm going to buy you another coffee later.
Right on.
So 6. All right. So then 19 minus 16, 3. So there's this little 3, this like little 3 hanging over. So the main way to do that is and I always say for all this stuff, it's way less complicated, I feel like, than a lot of people make it. I feel like odd times in general, not that it's easy if you haven't done it a lot, but I feel like there's kind of this stigma where if people haven't done it a lot, or I have students that haven't done it, where they in their head are like, oh no, this is going to be really, really, really hard. And it might be hard. It's not really, really, really hard if you break it down in little components. So I'm like, okay, so you played Back in Black for, how many gigs? Okay, so that's in 4. All right, so it's one of those dudes plus a little 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1. You end a 2, you end a 3, you end a 4, you end a 1, 2, 3. So just put, just loop that, no metronome, just get used to just thinking that and hearing that. And the big thing for me, and I got into this through a teacher of mine at IU, is go for a walk around the block and do it in time with your steps.
Oh,
and I do this.
Break an ankle though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And we probably haven't talked about this before. I do this all the time. I'll go for a walk and I'll play the Black Page with my hands on my legs as I walk around the venue like 4 times.
Okay.
Because when you're walking, like you'll constantly walk. You're not going to trip, like you just said, like your body's not going to let you do that. So it's a great way to internalize polyrhythms. like 5/2, whatever, 5/4, whatever it may be. So that's the one way with the 19. The other way that Vinny approaches it on there is 7/5/7.
Okay.
So it's a 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 6 7.
Right.
And then within that, then I'm not counting. I'm not actually doing like number by number. I'm thinking 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. So 3 2 3.
It's like a halftime. You're thinking in halftime subdivisions of the 7, 5, and 7. Yeah.
So and the key with anything is just go slow.
Yeah.
You just go slow because I mean on the it's like it's blazing on there. Don't or there's these great apps like Amazing Slow Downer and these put it in transcribe and slow it down to like deathly slow, and just play along with it. But for that one, so it's like a bar 4 plus a little 3/16 or 7/5/7, and then once you get comfortable, then you can kind of morph them together and start one and then end in the other one. Start with the other one and and just kind of start flipping back and forth between them.
It did me good, man, to hear you say the way you were counting that at one time in the 19, you were doing a bar 4 and then like you said, the little 3/16, because I've had a few students ask me about, it's a pretty famous Cobham tune. Do you remember there's a tune in 17 called Spanish Moss that's off of the Crosswinds album?
I do. I haven't listened to that forever, but I do remember that.
And the way that I was explaining it to them was almost exactly the way that you were explaining it. I used the 16 plus the 1, right? But if you recall the way Cobham phrases that groove, it's like this. It's like 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5, and that's the way he phrases that groove, and so that's very similar to kind of how you were counting that.
Yeah. So immediately, even when you just did that, my brain immediately went 4 4 4 5.
Right. Yeah.
And then I immediately start thinking the next step for me is okay, the 5. How can I stick the 5? Right. So I can alternate. Right, left, or I can go right, left, left, or right, left, and all that will make it all sound completely different. Just the sticking makes a huge difference.
And what makes it even wackier with that guy is that he's playing the open-handed thing, and so the way that he approaches some of the stuff, the way that he actually does the sticking on that little 5 will blow your freaking mind, you know, when you try to work through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with Odd Times, and we can take a host of all of we'll call it the big guys of Odd Times. The 7's a big one, right? The 5's a big one. The 9's a big one. Are there any what I call prototypical songs that you think of when somebody says something about, I need to learn how to play in 7, and you go, learn this?
Pound for a Brown. Yeah. I mean, for me, there's just so much stuff. Now, what's interesting is, so I grew up listening to Frank and listening to Rush pretty much all the time. And Primus, and a lot of, all this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of things for me that just, I didn't think of it as Odd Time. I just learned it on the record. And I've talked about this with a lot of other drummers too. And so it's weird. There's certain things in my head that don't feel like Odd Times at all because I learned it before I knew what Odd Time was.
But you know what? Let me interrupt you right in the middle of this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I think part of that is as well. I think part of that is especially in the case of Rush. They had a very unique way of compositionally writing these things that even though they were bars of 7 or 6 or 9, it was so well written that you could kind of draw a straight feeling line through it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's all of a sudden, it's kind of like, I just played this stuff and I was playing in 7 and had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, like some of the examples of like a Limelight.
Yeah.
there's bars. It's 7 and 6 all the way through the thing, and it
yeah.
doesn't feel like it.
Never. Yeah.
So anyway, I usurped your mojo, man. Sorry about that.
No,
but
no.
It just made me think of that.
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like I learned a lot of that stuff, would play along with it, and then one day my drum teacher was like, "Oh, hey, there's this Rush transcription book. You should check this out." And I saw it. When I saw it, that's when I was like, "What?" I was like, wait.
You literally
why am
had
I
no
the
idea you were doing
Yeah,
it.
no idea. Yeah. So I feel like there's a difference between stuff like that you learn when you're younger and you don't really know, and then stuff you learn later when your brain is trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Well, which is just a very interesting thing. Yeah.
Do you have a prototypical 5, like a 5/4 or 5/8?
For a song,
Yeah.
or sticking it for a song. Well, I mean, take 5 is like the go-to for me when I'm teaching, people to get into 5.
Do you think of Watermelon and Easter Hay as 9 or 4 and 5?
So I think of it as 9, but when I'm playing it, and it's in a solo section, and I'm tracking Dweezil, which that word tracking comes, I get from Chester Thompson told me that Frank told him to track him when he was soloing.
Okay.
And now that's some of my normal vocabulary. Yeah, I was talking to him one day, and he was like, "Yeah, Frank said when I solo, I want you to track me." I love that phrase. So when I'm tracking Dweezil, then I will think of it more as like 4 or 5, 5/4.
Okay.
4 or 5. Like I'll switch it. I'll constantly like jumble up the numbers into different patterns, which makes you play in a different way. It automatically forces you to do that, which I've gotten into this whole thing. And someday, I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to anyway, because someday I'm going to write a book about this.
Okay.
When I have time. I don't know when the hell that's going to be. but about I call it numbers. And all my students know this because I talk about this all the time. It's like at the end of the day, like we're taught 1 eana, 2 eana, 3 eana, 4 eana. But what is it really? 1 bar, 4/4. How many 16th notes? 16. So my brain, I've trained myself to reconfigure that. So it's just the number 16. It's not 4 little groups of 4. It's one big group of 16. So how many different ways can you group that 16? There's a ton. So I have people write out, I'll say, okay, so I'm going to give you the first number, 7. So what's left over? Okay, so 9. So I'll break that, let's say 4 or 5. So play 7, 4, 5. Now play one bar of time of Back in Black. I know I keep using that reference, but one bar of Back in Black. Then play a fill that's all 16th notes, but play 7 on the snare, 4 on the rack, 5 on the floor. And it feels obtuse immediately.
Yeah.
Because in your brain, it just feels weird. It sounds weird. It sounds, not normal. I'm not, like the word normal so much, but I got way into this, and it takes you out of the normal, little boxes of 1 and a 2E and a 3E, a 4E and, or whatever it is. So I have notebooks full of how many ways can I divide up 16 into different numeric patterns, and then 2 bars, 32.
Okay.
And then I'll do, so you could do a Sev 4/5 plus a Sev 4/5, but then you'll hear the bar line because it's 16 plus 16. So I'll swap the 2 interior numbers. So instead of Sev 4/5, Sev 4/5, I'll go Sev 5, Sev 5, 4, 5. And then it masks that bar line in the middle so you don't know where it is. And then you try it on a gig and it works great. You can do it while you're playing Sweet Home Alabama. Your bass player will turn and look at you and be like, I don't know what just happened. And then you can start experimenting with sticking patterns within that. So I just randomly fell on this in a lesson one day, and I thought, wow. And then I went home and just started working on this stuff all the time. So if it's a tune that's in 5, it's how many 16th notes are there? And
Sure.
so 20, and then I'll how can I break up that 20? So Watermelon is in 9.
Right.
So where I'm going with this then is, so I'll start to think like, and I've just done it a lot. I spent a lot of time doing this while walking, and mostly to make sure I have that constant tempo. I'll go for long walks and I'll think, okay, 9. So you would even start with just quarter notes. So there's 9 quarter notes. So how could I do it? I could do 3, 3, 3. I could do 4, 5. I could do 5, 4. And if I do all those back to back, it's going to sound weird and sort of crazy automatically, but it's not in my brain. I'm just going 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4. Or I'll hear Dweezil do some pattern that's like 4, 5, and I'll jump on the 4, 5 train for 4 bars.
Yeah.
And then I'll flip it, he might follow me because he'll feel me flip it. And then I'll go into a 3, 3, 3 thing. And then I might do, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. Like I'll just start jumbling all these numbers up to the point where what I'll do is I'll take a deck of playing cards with students, and whatever it is, I'll take, if we've done Sev 4, 5, I'll write Sev 4, 5 on 3 playing cards and then do 3 more, 3 more, 3 more. So I've got 4 4s, 4 5s, 4 7s. I'll shuffle them up and put them on a music stand. I'm like, that's what you're going to play.
You're like the freaking Schoenberg of pedagogical drumming.
I love this stuff. And someday there's going to be a massive book that's going to come out in 2028.
Well, we're going to talk about this as soon as we turn the microphones off. I have ideas,
but that gives you a little insight. So like I'm just constantly just thinking of different ways. It just makes it way easier to think about it. That doesn't seem like rocket science. It might now if you're listening and you're like, why, what? But if you just go piece by piece and do it a little bit day by day, and try it out on your gig, like when you're playing. This is not endorsed by the Drummers Weekly Groovecast. We do not provide unemployment benefits. One of the funniest things that's ever happened was at a gig at this place in LA called Molly Malone's, and one of my best friends, Kevin Stevens, we were watching some band and some fill went by. There was the most inappropriate fill for the song of all time. Now, I'm not talking about doing that. I'm like, this stuff can be really subtle. Like when you do the Sev 4, like this fill went by, that was the most ridiculous fill ever. And my friend Kevin leaned over. I remember I laughed for 10 minutes. He looked over and he goes, "Gig loser." That's one of my favorite things ever. And then somehow, like, I have friends come see me play the Dweezil gig, and it's like, I'm not, I probably 75% of the stuff I do on this gig, if I did on any other gig, I'd be fired instantly. Well, and then you would be fired if you didn't do it on this gig. Yeah, right. It's like the required thing for this. But like, then when I go home and play, in my other bands, if I did it, they would look at me and be like, "What in the hell are you doing?" Yeah. One more now. Do you have a template or do you have a particular song you think of for 9? Well, there's a bunch of stuff that just popped into my head. So Watermelon, but Drowning Witch. And now it's fresh in my head because we've done it so much in the last few weeks. There's a bunch of stuff in 9. And there's a big open solo section that's in 9. Mm-hmm. So that's a great one. That'd be a great one too if anybody wants to learn how to play in 9 to play along with. And you don't have to learn how to play Drowning Witch because I'll be the first person to tell you. It's insane. Yeah. But just that solo section, like you could even just chop that solo section into your computer and just loop it, a few times just to feel, what it's like. The one that slaughters me, not to get off the Zappa bandwagon, but the one that kills me in 9. And it's just because it's one of those things you can just tell that he's playing with depraved abandon is Cobham on Vital Transformation. Oh yeah, from that early Mahavishnu on the Intermounting Flame. Man, it's like that entire band is like hanging on by a thread when he's just because it's a moving on 9 also. Yeah, that's one of those, man, that just
it kills me. He went through a very fertile period of odd times.
Yeah.
back in those days.
You described that perfectly too, where it's just like you can feel in the recording like it is just like hanging on.
Just
Just like, and you can tell that like they're on the edge, and I love that. I love hearing that in recordings where like you can tell nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's that you know, my wife calls it urgency.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like hearing that urgency,
Yeah.
you know, is awesome. You know, that you can't manufacture that.
Right. Yeah. And
Like that it happens.
Some of those old early fusion recordings, you know, when you hear those Mahavishnus and you hear those like Tony Williams Lifetimes and of course the Miles stuff like the Live Evil and the Bitches Brew, it's one of those things, man, to where they were hanging on, man, when they were playing that stuff. They were kind of forging new ground every time they played those tunes.
They were, you know, I'll tell you, you know, what's interesting in my gig with Dweezil, when he's soloing, and it took me a while to figure this out, and Frank would do this too. He sometimes, not all the time, but he'll solo and just abandon everything that Kurt and I and Chris or whoever's copying behind us, behind him, you know, and he'll just solo freely on top. And I know that's a big thing for solo students. No, we don't get that luxury a lot of times.
Right.
What is fun and scary at the same time is if I'm playing behind him, I will do that too, and just let it. Because I know Kurt is the man, my bass player, and he's holding down the fort. And a lot of the Frank stuff, there's an ostinato going on in the bass, and I'll just go off into outer space, and I'll purposefully not think about what time signature it is, and I will purposefully stop feeling it or counting or any of that, and just see what happens, and just listen to Dweezil and track him, and then when I'm ready, come back into, and then just start, and you know, and just my ear will glue onto what he's doing until I figure out where he is.
It's very, as Rockalam Bob Moses would say, that's organic, man.
Yeah, bro.
No,
and it's fun and
terrifying.
Scary.
It's absolutely terrifying. But the one thing that you've got to have with that is you got to have implicit trust. Like you said, you've got to have implicit trust, not only, of course, in the guy that's playing that ostinato, but you got to have implicit trust in yourself and in the other guy that's playing organically with you, to where you can come back to that home base and find where one is.
Yeah. And it's fun, and I love that feeling of like it happened last night. Like, you know, there was a period of like, you know, you can't count it in bars. You know, I don't know. There's like 5 seconds where I was like, I'm gonna take this off the rails and just see what happens for a second. And I love it. It's like walking to the end of the diving board and you just jump off. And you're like, here we go.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
It's liberating. It is like jumping into like a cold pool.
Yeah.
You know, but. Hey, but what time's your sound check, by the way?
5:30.
Okay, all right. So we're doing it. We've been going for an hour and a half already, man. But we do have a we'll call it a late lunch, early dinner commitment though that we have to make happen though as well.
Sometime I could talk to you for we could do like a 24-hour show sometime.
I know. I feel
when I fly you out to the Burbank airport and John Stone and I pick you up.
Yes.
And we do a drum hang at my house.
Yes. It's on.
It's going to be episodes 110, 111, 112, 113, 114.
This show has sort of unintentionally turned into like one of these marathon Joe Rogan style podcasts, which, by the way, now here, talk about non sequiturs again. I completely forgot, and there's no reason for me to have mentioned this, but now that Rogan's name came up on this show, because he needs a little promotion. When I was that time that I was out in LA, that I was telling you that I ate at that little Greek restaurant, I stayed one night, the first night that I was there, out in Woodland Hills, and I stayed right on Ventura Highway, right there at a hotel that was there. And the next morning, before we started taking off and going up the PCH, I ended up getting on Waze and getting on the maps and whatnot, and I went up and down Ventura Highway. I got a few supplies, went to like a grocery store and went to like a CVS and all this other stuff. And now my son is a hockey player, Okay. And we went to a hockey shop that was there because he wanted me to get him some LA Kings gear, right, when we were out there.
I approve of that.
So check this out, man. You can't make this up, dude. So we do our errands and we go to this hockey shop, right? And so I'm talking to these kids that are in this hockey shop, really nice guys that are in there. And they're just like, what are you doing out here? And I'm just like, I just out here running around, roaming around, doing some stuff like that. And like, what do you do? I'm a musician. All right, really? What else? Blah, blah, blah. I have a podcast. Really? You got a podcast? And I said, yeah, I got a podcast. He goes, look out that door. And you see this there's a little strip mall over there. He goes, it's where Rogan does his show. So I was literally, the hotel that I was at was in this area where if I could have walked through this little wooded area, Rogan's studio was right behind this hotel in this little strip mallish looking thing. And it was just this real, it didn't have, of course it didn't have the Joe Rogan podcast over time. It's just this kind of unmarked thing that was there. Now I think he's moved since then because this was about a year and a half ago. But now that I've completely and totally bored everyone out of their gourd with my Joe Rogan.
I found that fascinating. That was great. Yeah. Yeah.
Should we go to the Vortex now?
That sounds good. But here, before I forget.
Oh, yeah, you got some things you need to tell some people.
Well, okay.
Don't give away any more trade secrets about writing this book. I nearly wanted to throw this thing across the freaking room and hit you in the head with it because it's going to get stolen.
Well, I do want everybody to know this. A really good friend of mine, Bruce Becker, just phenomenal drummer who lives in LA. Because we're talking about all this stuff. He, speaking of books, just released a new book that's phenomenal. And if anybody wants to get into doing odd times and polyrhythms, and this just came out, and it's called Puzzles, Rhymes, and Rhythms and Riddles. Sorry, yeah, and riddles, like solution to odd time phrasing. Something. Bruce Becker, killer new book out on how to approach all that stuff that we're talking about for anybody that wants to get into it. Mm-hmm. And kind of get their feet wet with odd times and and he breaks it down great. It's like how to stick it, how to play it, and then he writes down in 4/4, and you can see how it goes over the bar line, and then you can see how you can throw it into your gig and not have it be a gig loser fill, and keep your gig but subtly kind of work this stuff in but it's and he gets into polyrhythms. So yeah, check out Bruce Becker's new book. And again,
and don't forget to do your album also.
Thank you. Yeah, and because people ask me this all the time after shows about all the polyrhythms and stuff. I would just say, don't be intimidated by it. It can be daunting, but it's just like anything. You break it down, go slow, and I'm sure there's a million things online, and I bet there's a ton of YouTube stuff you can check out too. And I write blogs for D'Addario and for the D'Addario Education Collective. And I've actually written a lot of blogs about that.
I actually just learned how to say that. I used to say D'Addario.
I did for forever until I became part of the family. Yeah. And this one of my good friends, Jerry Noble, phenomenal educator that's the head of the percussion department at Wright State University. He was like, I said it the old way, which I don't even want to do because it's going to get back into my head. And he was like, Ryan, repeat after me. Duh. I was like, yeah, D'Addario. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Just go slow like anything. And it's so much fun. Like for me, it's, and even if you don't do it on your gig on a daily basis, it makes your time better on everything, which is awesome. Like you'll notice a difference when you go, to play, whatever your gig is, and you're playing "If This Is It" by Huey Lewis and the News.
What a freaking segue!
Do you like that? Yeah. That's who you need on the show, Bill Gibson, the drummer for Huey Lewis, because I would be here if it were for him.
Yeah,
Bill Gibson's the man.
That's true. Did I tell you, I actually warmed up for him one time. I warmed up for Huey Lewis in the News.
Can I shake your hand?
That just brought this freaking show to a screeching halt. Dude, you need to tell these people about this. You've got a project.
I do. Yeah, I have. Thank you. Yeah, I have an original rock band in LA called the Young Royals. that I've been a part of for years. Super, super fun band. And we just released a new record, and it's on Spotify. It's on iTunes, all that stuff. It's called 3 Up, 3 Down. So yeah, if you're looking for some new music, please check that out. Very, very, very proud of it. It came out great. I've worked with that band for a long time, and the leader of that band, Eric Bradley, and I played in bands together for something like 15 years around LA. So yeah, the Young Royals, 3 Up, 3 Down. Please check it out. It's good for your soul.
And also make sure you check out Dweezil's website for the Choice Cuts tour. If he's coming to a town or city even close by, you owe it to yourself to come out and see these guys. I've seen them before. I'm about to see them again in about an hour and 15 minutes, and they're going to freaking blow the roof off the dump wherever you're at. So
thank you. Dweezilzappa.com.
Yeah.
Check that out. And we're on the road a lot. And you guys, please reach out to me. Find me. I'd love to meet everybody. Hit me up, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. My website's ryanbrowndrums.com. You can write me from there. Please write me. I'd love to meet everybody. Because what's the greatest thing in the world? Drums. You want to talk about drums? Yeah, let's go have a cheeseburger and talk about some drums and polyrhythms and stuff.
And then all he's going to say, buy me a cheeseburger, listen to episode 91. All right, we've been doing this for an hour and a half. You want to go to the Vortex and get some tater tots and queso?
I'm in.
All right,
I'm
man.
in. Let's do it.
We'll see y'all later.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh,
much
man.
appreciated. You're the man. You're the man.
You're anytime, man. Say goodbye to the folks.
Goodbye, folks. Thanks for listening.